This is DJ Fantasy and you're locked into the Drum and Bass Diaries. They just got some shizzle out of me, man. I don't know how they done it.
What's in it for young people? Enjoyment, you know. It's energetic music.
It's exciting. Drum and bass is like the like the punk music of electronic music. It's always been kind of shunned. Every year the journalists say, "Oh, drum and bass is dying" and all that kind of stuff. And it's rebellious music. It's underground. As Debridge would say, it's like love's ugly child, and it's. I think for young people it's a way for them to go and dance and release energy and, you know, have fun to something that really doesn't really conform to the rules, like all the pop music that you hear and all the rubbish that you get in the charts. There's not many people forcing drum and bass into different directions. Everybody's individual, just making it, so it's allowed to kind of develop on its own rather than A&R people going, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, and work with this person. So I think young people, rebellious young people, like that.
I think young people are getting involved in drum and bass still because I think if you are passionate about dance music or urban genres, it finds its way. It's so bizarre. It's that the one style of music that has lasted in terms of an urban, again, an underground thing, that has lasted for so many years and always finds a way to resurface or re-emerge in certain tunes, certain tracks.
I think what attracts people to drum and bass specifically is this kind of it's quite a neat culture around it. It's quite easy to get sort of involved straight away. It's like you don't sort of, well, I mean, you can just sort of, you know, enjoy it for as a fan sort of thing, but it's kind of BYO. You can bring your own sort of thing to it. It's quite easy to get involved and make your own music. It's quite easy to sort of get involved and put on your own nights. It's quite easy to sort of just get set up with some decks and start mixing. So I think it's quite an easy platform to just sort of start doing it yourself instead of having to save up, you know, thousands of pounds and go through loads of training and stuff like that. I think it's something you can pick up and go as you go along.
I'll tell you how I see the cycle of ravers, and it's started to change gradually recently, but over the years I've always seen drum and bass as like an entry-level music for kids, whether they want to be DJs, MCs, ravers. It was always a very young crowd, and then you see them in the raves for a few years, and then all of a sudden they think they've got to get into house music or garage because they're a bit grown up now, so they're a bit grown up for the drum and bass, and they go away for a few years, and then they come back because once they come back to a rave they think, oh yeah, I forgot how good it was.
Again, I'll go back to the feeling. Drum and bass is a feeling. It's got that energy. There's not really many other sounds that have that energy. I even see big top dubstep guys that are like, you know, they're like the kings out there. And sometimes they'll play drum and bass or jungle in their set. You know, even the top garage guys, guaranteed they'll play some jungle, drum and bass in their sets. You know, so the thing is it is a worldwide sound, and the thing is it's always been quite a young scene. You know, it's always been, you know, like people sort of from 17 through to 21, they kind of do the sort of drum and bass era, and then as they get older, they either stay with it or they move on to other things. But I also think that the generation that we're in now, which I call the iPod generation, it's not like it used to be, whereas when you were into a sound and you were into a music and that's what you'd done. You just locked off to everything else. That was what you'd done. I think these days anything's acceptable. You know, like kids don't just have drum and bass, they don't just have dubstep, they don't just have whatever, they have everything on their iPods. They'll have Nicki Minaj, they'll have Rihanna, they'll have Chase and Status, they'll have Fresh, they'll have like, you know, Magistrate, they'll have, you know, they'll have everything on their iPods because we're in that generation, and that's what I think opens the music up to a nice young audience, you know, because again I go back to it's a feeling, you know.
It's all together against everyone else, it feels like. That's you know, I've always loved what I love, because it's always been like, it's not the biggest scene, it's not like pop music or rock music, or it's just a little scene on its own that's survived forever, and it don't have it from no one, it don't take no shit from anyone. So you know, I just think for kids getting into drum and bass, there's a world of opportunity if you're into making music, playing music, or singing, spitting over music, whatever. But also as a raver, you know, it gives you the best raves in the world, so what more do you need? What more do you need?
Record labels are pivotal to getting people to want to kind of write tunes, and you know, everyone wants their own record, and yeah, hopefully all the labels are kind of adding something a bit different and making the whole genre interesting. That's what a record label can offer.
It's a double-edged sword. Of course, there's labels I love and stuff, but I get a little disheartened when I feel that that labels are becoming more important than the artists, because ultimately it's the artists that make the music, and people follow labels sometimes and just consume the material regardless of what the artists are doing, and that I think compromises the integrity of the whole thing. And I think people should just like make sure that they're aware of who your labels are and how they consume the music. Sometimes labels become disinterested in an artist, not because the artist isn't making good tunes anymore, but he becomes bigger than them or a threat to them in some way. You know, labels get involved in politics, and labels sometimes don't always do the right thing by artists as well. So, you know, there's something to be conscious of, I think, and ultimately, you know, the more discerning consumer will look for the artist and the true art and the record.
Record labels are obviously important, because without record labels we wouldn't have any music, you know what I mean? And I suppose back in the day it was very brave to stick your neck out and start a record label, because there wasn't a lot of money involved in our scenes in the beginning. I mean, you know, Metalheads, we ran it from Chemistry's one-bedroom flat for 2 years before we even moved into office. I think people thought we had loads of people working there, but it was literally us two and a friend of Goldie's who kind of did all the contracts, and, you know, we did the kind of, I suppose, the lip service, and obviously looking after the artists. Goldie did want Metalheads to be, I suppose, more of a lifestyle label, and I do think it is. You know, it's very Stussy-esque. You know, I think Stussy, I mean, it's my favourite, one of my favourite clothing labels, and I think Metalheads really follows that if you're involved in, you know, that kind of clothing range, you will hunt it. I mean, I've hunted it down all over the world, Stussy, and I don't care how much time I have to take to find it, you know, and at rare items, and I might find something in a little shop somewhere, and I think that's the same with Metalheads. We created a lifestyle rather than just a label. But obviously it's great to be involved in a label, because then you're able to impart knowledge and mentor your artists, and you do become this family. And it's, I mean, if you look at Metalheads, it's great for someone like Goldie to give advice, you know, career advice, musical advice. You know, he's done that all the way through, and likewise Reinforce gave him that advice. Mark Mannix, Digo, they imparted their knowledge to him. So it's a chain of events. You know, I think a record label, it can, obviously that's what you want as an artist, as a producer, to be on a record label, and then you can start moving to other labels. And I think that was the one thing Goldie did as well. He didn't sign anyone exclusively. We all encouraged our artists to go on and make your own record labels, and then you get bigger and bigger and bigger. Do you know what I mean? And that was the whole kind of thing of encouraging them to go forward, and, you know, okay, so now you've earned some money from your first 12, so you can start doing something else. And then each label has picked up different artists, you know, so that's really exciting, really. And I think record labels are of the ultimate importance to get this scene kind of going and keeping it together.
There can be negatives to it when it becomes too much about business, or certain record labels are sort of more concerned with whether they're gonna be able to, like, you know, sell units. You get into this kind of cycle where there's, you know, they're dictating what people are listening to, you know. But then, if they're only concerned with that, you know, they're only going to sell what they think people are listening to, because that's what's going to make them money. But then people are only going to buy that. So then, you know, in the worst case scenario, it can end up in this position where they're sort of dictating what an artist is going to be making, which can be bad. But you know, in the other respect, there's always good people doing good things, you know, and labels are all important for giving people a platform to do their thing, you know.
Young DJ producers, you know what you need to do? You need to find like-minded people, hang with them and build a little crew together. You know, numbers in strength, I say. I mean, sorry, strength in numbers, that's the way to say it. You've got to be very patient and very persistent and very consistent as well.
I'd say if it's something you really want to do, keep at it. Just show people you're really passionate. Have something to fall back on, because there are so many people like just trying to make a career out of music, and not everyone's going to make it. So if you're going to uni, stick at uni. Just have like other interests on the side that you could possibly do in case the music thing doesn't work out for you.
Be patient, send out music to labels you respect first. Don't get disheartened if your music doesn't get signed straight away. You know, people that you may look up to that have been producing, have been doing it for a long time. It takes a while to get to the stage where you know, your music will be signed by successful labels. Yeah, so be patient and don't get disheartened, and don't take it personally if someone doesn't like your track or it doesn't want to put it out. Doesn't mean someone else won't. And just take advice on board. Yeah, don't take it personally and just be patient. That's the top advice I can give.
Don't badger people, just make good tunes. When you feel like you've got a good tune, find out how to get hold of a label, mostly through AIM. SoundCloud's quite good as well, or even an email.
You get out what you put in, basically, you know, that's the main thing.
I'll interject here on his behalf so he doesn't sound like a big head. The amount of effort that top line producers put in, and the dedication that these guys put in, Yaz and these guys put in, it's ridiculous. You need to be completely obsessed with it. If you think you can sit for 2 hours a week after the pub on a Friday night and, you know, cut a little plate, that's how old I am. Put it on an MP3, and you're going to be a superstar. It doesn't work like that. Even if you've got the raw talent and you understand music, the amount of effort that has to go into it.
And some people do get lucky though, man. Like,
some people get lucky, and some people
don't put the effort in, and they are genuinely talented people. But for most of the people that are getting rated by not only like the masses, but the actual producers in the scene, that you are putting a lot of your time and effort into this. Like, do you know what I mean? And yeah, it shows for me anyway when I listen to the people that are putting the time in and the people that ain't. Do you know what I mean? There's a big difference in my ears, especially when you're critically listening to music, and like, yeah, you can tell who's in the studio their whole life and who's not, sort of thing. Like.
But I think persistence is a key thing. But I think that goes for any art form. It doesn't just mean drum and bass. There's an analogy that like there's only one Lionel Messi, or I suppose Cristiano Ronaldo. There's two. Most other top footballers have to work their socks off to get there. Like it's my David Beckham versus Lionel Messi. Lionel Messi was just born to play football. People might argue David Beckham was, and he's not as much of a great as Lionel Messi. But you know what? He took an amount of talent, and he did everything he could to maximise that. And I think that's where most people lie. You will get prodigies that come and smash people out of the water. It happens. Yeah, but most people if you have the intelligence enough to understand it and work out what you need to do, it's a graft thing from that point forward. And I think that goes for any art form.
Yeah, just be yourself, really. Just be original. Stick to your guns. Personally, I've had phases where my style of MC has been really popular, phases where it's been really unpopular. I've just kept doing pretty much the same thing the whole way through, and it's worked out. I don't want to change for anybody else or change for fashion. So I think the key thing is be original. You've got to work hard as well. I meet kids and they're like, oh, I've made one tune, how come I'm not signed to XYZ label? And it's like, we've made one tune, you've got to put the work in. If you're an MC, you've got to write a lot, you've got to network a lot, you've got to understand the music and, you know, keep at it. It's worth it once you get there.